everyone. Welcome back to the CCO Follow podcast. Today's a really kind of a special episode for me because Travis and I are having my father on, Art D'Alessandro.
I feel outnumbered. Should I change my name to Arthur?
Yeah, maybe. So this is a really cool podcast for me, especially. But it's also a cool podcast because we're talking about something that we really want to address as we talk about community. And that is inviting people into your home. And the way that it looks for this coming month, obviously we're in the month of November and Thanksgiving is coming up. And so one of the things that Travis and I were talking about earlier was we would love to have someone on that we know invites people over for Thanksgiving. And I was like, I
know someone.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about just really being hosts, inviting people in, specifically on holidays, but also just in general. And so I'm really excited. Thank you for coming on, Dad.
You're welcome.
I'll probably refer to you as Dad, but
that
just so everybody else knows, Art D'Alessandro. Yeah, Travis, what are we talking about here about inviting people into our home?
Yeah, well, to some extent, the end goal is not home. The end goal is inviting people into your lives. The end goal is building community and relationships because, you can invite me into your home, but you can be so closed off that I felt like all I did is went into a building with you, no different than a coffee shop.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Yeah, kind of awkward. The end goal is that you're inviting people into your lives. And the home is just a really special place where that can happen because that is where you live. And that's the place where you, for the most part, have complete control over what it looks like, what's in it, what the experience is like. And I don't want those things to sound overwhelming, like you have to create some kind of, experience. But the reality is like by welcoming someone to your home, you're kind of welcomed into a part of you.
Yeah, it's very vulnerable.
It's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's, it's vulnerability that really creates relationships. I think we talked about that in another episode this month, is that really is what allows for relationships to especially start, but then to thrive long term.
Yeah. So I, just jumping into it, Dad, I've known you from time to time, not every Thanksgiving, not every Christmas, but from time to time you'll invite somebody over. And I don't know, maybe you could talk a little bit about what that has been like for you and what that has looked like.
Sure. Well, I think to really understand where that comes from, it's, I grew up in a household where we would have Sunday dinner together as a family. And my grandparents, my mom and dad, and we were always told, bring your friends. So for me, Sunday gathering, breaking bread, and enjoying the fellowship. Yeah. But, I got a chance to invite friends over when I was much, much younger, and they got a chance to see that dynamic happen. Yeah. And, it's not just eating, it's conversation, it's sharing. Yeah. It was just a wonderful experience for me. And, that's really where it started. And I really wanted to capture that. I served in the military, and, when the holidays came, they always did great things. I mean, I had a great meal, and we ate together in the mess hall. And, one thing was missing. And realistically, it was our ability to really give thanks. Yeah. And I was so terribly thankful for so much. And I just wanted to share that. So it actually started back when I was in the Army. Yeah. After having, a Thanksgiving meal in the mess hall, I decided, hey, you know what?
This isn't good enough.
This isn't good enough. Yeah. So, I love to cook, and it is, it's a God-given gift. And I just wanted to share that. So what I would do is I actually would go out and research and find a cabin or a house we could rent. And then I would just start inviting my fellow soldiers and their friends and, said, hey, I'm doing Thanksgiving. I'm renting a house and I want to make it special. So I'd always ask him, what's that thing that you really need to have? And what was that special
what makes
meal?
Yeah.
What was that? It was that
side dish.
What that you really just had to have? And so I would ask that, and I'd make a list, and and we'd try to fulfill all of those. So when we got together and broke bread, they would have that connection with their
cool.
past.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I'm interrupting here, but so military, you're away from home, you're away from family.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times that's just where you're at. And so I wanted to like bring that into the conversation here, because when a lot of what we're talking about is, you know, when you have a family, you're going to do stuff with your family, but there's so many brothers and sisters just in Christ, but also in our community around us that don't have access to family, that don't have, you know, they're just gonna, what are you doing on Thanksgiving? I'm just gonna be by myself. And so I love that you brought that in, because you yourself were also away from your family, and so it's like, how can we do this? I think that's really cool. Yeah. I like how you know, you being like this single guy in the military with all these other single guys, like they're, you know, alone. I don't know if many of them probably married, but like alone at the time, single individuals, they all gathered together to do that. And I think sometimes in our culture today, people are like, well, it has to be the couples who are inviting people over, or it has to be this person or that person.
No.
And sometimes people are like, well, I don't have a big enough place to host. You had no place you could host.
No place.
And so you found a place.
That's
and I mean,
cool.
there was a couple in our church who for a long time ran a Thanksgiving dinner in the church, like in the fellowship hall, because they didn't have a place big enough for those who would come to attend. Yeah. And they were like, hey, can we use this? Because again, like they didn't have a place they could host in. And I think sometimes that's one of the first barriers to entry is like, well, I can't host because, you know, I can only fit 4 people. And, you know, if that is more than who lives in your house, I mean, take 4 people, but also look for other opportunities. You know, it might not be just hosting, you know, other places. You could even technically host in a park if, like, during the summertime, it's like, hey, we're gonna, you know, all have this thing. So I love that about your story.
Okay, so keep going, continue.
Well, you know, it was an opportunity to fellowship. But one of the prerequisites I had was basically I was going to say grace, and I was expecting, you know, I was going to share what I was thankful for. Yeah. And I asked everybody just to go around and tell everybody what they're thankful for. Yeah. And so that's how it all started. So that was in the military, but you know, after I got out, I met my beautiful wife, and next, you know, fast forward, we're married, and you know, we both share in the same idea that we want to share, and so as a couple, we decided, you know, we'd like to invite people over, and you know, on holidays and
pre-kids, right?
Pre-kids, and
pre-me.
Yeah, pre-you. That's a long time ago. But yeah, we would we open our house up to anybody that, you know, had no place to go. Yeah. Whether they were coworkers, and or their friends. Yeah. You know, and quite honestly, there's family. Sometimes family. You know, you don't talk. Yeah. You know, they don't have anywhere to go. They may not be of the same belief that you are. Yeah. And, you know, we've had some situations in the past where we've had some family members that were non-believers and still appreciated the fact to come over and fellowship. And, you know, quite honestly, there was a situation where one said, hey, I know you're going to pray, and I really don't want to be involved with that. And so I'll excuse myself while you do that. And you know what? I just silently prayed in my head to God, and he heard me, and he said, please just let this individual stay here for grace. And he wound up staying. And so, you know, it's an opportunity to share not only the blessings that you have in sharing a meal, but it's also being able to share from, you know, your heart. Yeah. And
well, and sometimes, you know, it's the prayers that get to people. Sometimes it's just that continual long-suffering kindness. You know, it's the goodness, the kindness of God leads us to repentance. And sometimes we just wear people away over time of continuing to show them kindness, even though they continue to come and say, I'm not here for this prayer. Oh, I know. I'm not here for... Oh, I know. I'm still going to keep offering to you anyway. I'm going to keep giving
Yeah.
that grace to you
Amen.
anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
And you just wear them down.
Yeah.
You know, kill them with kindness.
Well, so this, you're bringing up so many good things. Like, you know, you're covering a lot of the bases. Like even talking about, I didn't even know about the family thing, but I am aware of that, obviously. But it's interesting because I think, because specifically Thanksgiving is coming up, so I kind of want to bring up Thanksgiving, but
yeah.
I feel like Thanksgiving is I know Christmas is really about Jesus, and I know people quote unquote know that.
That's good that you know that.
But I really do genuinely feel that Thanksgiving is the closest thing to a spiritual holiday or experience that we can have, because non-believers even will come together and give thanks. They'll fellowship around, they'll break bread together, and they'll give thanks. And I just think it's so close. I think it's not a Christian holiday.
It's the closest thing to what a lot of people enact spiritual disciplines with.
Exactly. And so I think it's a really cool opportunity, and it's a really easy opportunity to pull somebody into that, because they're already expecting a lot of that. And then they see, oh, like I could be thankful about, you know, man, I'm thankful about, you know, living and, you know, all these different things, but these guys are thankful about this God that they're talking about. It's interesting. And I feel like I don't know.
Even people recognizing, oh, I'm thankful for this. Most of them, they kind of have this lingering question of like, well, who's that from?
Yeah,
exactly.
And so kind of
exactly.
even in their own subconscious or maybe consciously, they're just like, well, I'm very thankful for my family. Man, that was lucky, right? Quote unquote lucky. I'm thankful for this. I was quote unquote lucky. Like I couldn't design that. I couldn't have prepared that. I couldn't have made that happen.
Wow, I'm really thankful for being so lucky.
Yeah. And it's, you know, I think it does put a pebble in someone's shoe as they're walking life.
Oh, for
to
sure.
have this constant reminder that, you know, we're not self-made.
I think you nailed it. That's exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah. So let's kind of switch gears. Travis, I know that you have done something very similar.
Yeah, we started kind of similarly. You know, we've always loved just having people at our house. When we were first married, we had all of our single friends. We were the place to crash because we were married very young when I was almost 20. And so a lot of our friends still lived at their parents' house. So if they wanted somewhere to go, they didn't have to buy food or coffee or something like that. It was like, let's go to the Sink's house.
Yeah.
And so we were the hub for that. And we just enjoyed hosting so much, just how much that lowers barriers, how much that shows vulnerability, how much that builds community, that when we moved to Florida, you know, it wasn't military, obviously, but most of the people there did not live near family. And so we had a bunch, not a single one of our neighbors. We lived in an apartment building of 4 units. Not a single one of them had family in the area. You know, the closest one I think was a few hours away from family. The rest of them out of state. And, you know, we had a lot of homeless friends. We had a lot of, almost all my coworkers were from out of state, or, you know, came to that area from out of state. And so we just had a big hodgepodge of believers and non-believers who were just like nowhere to go. And we were the only married couple out of any of them. And we're just like, you know what, like, let's host these things. And so for the first couple of years without kids, we would host, you know, on Thanksgiving, it would be homeless people, it would be our neighbors, it would be some coworkers, maybe a couple people from church. Christmas, same thing. And then even after we had kids, we were just kind of like, what do we do? And we're like, I guess we just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so thankfully we started before kids. Otherwise, I don't think we would have started post kids.
Yeah.
Especially because there's all that pressure to like, you're building kids' memories and it's so special. And it's like, yeah, why wouldn't we want that to be part of their memory?
Yep.
And so even Christmas morning, you know, I mean, our kids weren't very old. At the oldest, I think, was 3, maybe 4 before we moved back to Washington. But you know, we just continued to do that. And so that was part of their Christmas morning, is having, you know, the homeless friend and the neighbor and a couple other people coming for Christmas breakfast because they didn't have anywhere to go.
Yep.
And I should say, Alicia made all that food. I feel terrible thinking back on it because I did nothing.
Yeah.
I was not good at cooking.
It's so, I really, it's difficult. I'm like very much bent not the way that you guys are. I am very like, I like to be, you know, I tend to isolate myself.
It's Home Alone by choice.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
Kevin
And so,
McAllister, but you want to be there.
And so thinking about this, like, to me, it's like, wow, like, I know that other people also think, wow, these holidays are so intimate and they're, for family and all these different, and that can be said true, maybe. But the reality is, if, especially as Christians, if we're living a life on mission and we're living a life all about relationships. I mean, we're talking about community this month, and all we're talking about really is the importance of, we're designed to be in community. Having people over on the most quote unquote intimate times of our family, that's what has to happen. That's a good thing to do.
Yeah. And
you were saying, earlier, it takes vulnerability. I'm just trying to think back of when, because you've continued to do it even when we were born, the kids. And I think it's funny because you're like, oh, it's about building memories. When I was really young, I definitely don't remember anything.
Yeah, that's fair.
So there's a lot of times where I just don't remember. But, there is certain times where I have remembered. I remember a guy from our church that you had invited, and it's always an interesting experience as being the kid. And I appreciate you being on, because now I can kind of give that view. But it's as a kid, you're very much, whatever happens is happening, and that's normal, right? Everything's good.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't unusual necessarily to see somebody new on holiday, but just the way that, I think for their perspective, the way that when you invite people in and all these different, kids are running around and whatnot, maybe you have cousins over or whatnot, it's just the love that's exuded just by witnessing and being there, I think is just immeasurable. And I don't know if you, so maybe tell us a story about someone in particular. You don't have to use names or anything.
Well, but before I get there, I want to say I think it rubbed off on you, even though you didn't realize it. The fellowship and breaking bread, because your wing nights.
Oh yeah.
You would invite your friends over.
That's true.
And you know what? By example, you became,
Okay, let me explain.
Let
me explain. Okay, so it's not necessarily people I don't know. Okay, so I'm putting that out there. There's definitely people I know. But in high school, so my dad, he mentioned it. He's like really, really good chef. Like really good. Like the food that he makes is the best that I've ever had, and I'm pretty picky, and Travis knows that.
But you're also
very
biased.
picky.
I'm biased, but I'm very little biased. I'm very harsh on critiques.
You are.
But he makes chicken wings that are just the best, like way better than anything you can buy. So I wanted to share that because, man, my dad makes the best wings. And all my friends love chicken wings. They need to have his wings. And so in high school, I think it was like a birthday or something that I was having. I just was like, all right, I'm inviting everybody over, all my friends, and we're going to have wing night. And, we played poker and do all these different things, us kids do. And that's really when it started. But after seeing, I was sitting at the head of the table, and I still remember seeing all my friends just enjoying the food, and seeing my dad are they enjoying it? Yep. Okay, good. I did a good job. It just was normally I would just want to be on my own, but it was just one of those things that I was like, wow, they're really enjoying it, and it brought joy to my heart. And so I've just been doing wing nights occasionally with all the friends and the guys and stuff.
And you still do it by yourself now?
Yeah. By myself. Yeah, well, that's difficult, but yes.
Well, and I think that points to something that I noticed in your story earlier that I was going to point out, but it keeps coming up anyway, is that, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Our outreaching is supposed to flow from thankfulness, from love, from being already full and it pouring out.
Yep.
You mentioned in your story how you were so thankful in the military of just life and had so many things to be thankful for. You want to share it with these other guys. Yeah. You loved your dad's wings so much and enjoyed your friends. You're like, hey, I'm going to give these people who I love so much these things that I love so much that at the end of the day, I think sometimes we feel like we have to muster up this, like, I'm going to have people over. I'm going to reach out to people. I'm going to build community.
It's not a checked thing.
It's not a checked thing. And it's not something you like build up for. Like maybe there's a certain part of you that has to build up like emotionally to be like, okay, I'm actually going to do this. Like, you know, jumping off a diving board. But
the motivation is out of
the motivation
above.
to get on the diving board is absolutely this, like, I want these people to experience this thing. I want them to have this community. I want them to experience this love and joy that I'm already full with.
Yeah.
And so I just appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a Christ. It's a Christ-like trait too. You mentioned it. I mean, so often we forget that a lot of what we do is you know, out of love. Like God literally came and He created us out of love for us. He saved us out of love for us, and so we're, you know, designed in a way that is also inherent in our hearts too.
Yeah.
It's easy to do, you know. Well, I shouldn't say it's easy, right? There's effort you have to put into it as a single person. But I'm just so blessed to have, you know, a spouse that loves the same things I do. And, you know, whenever you would have your friends over, we'd both sit back and just watch. Yeah. And it would fill our hearts because it was obviously going on.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay. So tell us about like a specific story about, you know, I'm thinking of like a guy you invited to church.
Sure.
But if you have a different one, I just want to know, like,
sure,
like just walk us through that whole experience of like what the tug on your heart beforehand and just.
Well, there was an individual that went to the church, our church, and, you know, mental illness and addiction is a horrible thing, and it's prevalent everywhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd been in the men's group, and I knew this individual really well. And he had an episode, and it broke them as a family. Yeah. And, you know, he was married, I believe. He had 2 daughters, slipped back into addiction, and was just extremely sad. And I did notice that he came back to church, and it was right around Thanksgiving. And I knew he had no place to go. His family, basically, he was written off. Yeah. I was just thankful that he showed up. And he was on the streets, living on the streets. Yeah. And so Angela and I, we decided, hey, this is a great opportunity. So we just invited him. And again, this was back when we lived in that little house in Carline Beach. And kids were pretty young. And it was interesting. It was an interesting situation. And knowing that there was addiction, you know, we had to make sure that...
put away pill bottles, hide stuff.
Everything,
absolutely.
Put it away. But, you know, it really touched our heart because he just... You could see all of a sudden it was like something melted, and you could see that he was just so thankful. And, you know, when we went around and asked, you know, what we're thankful for, because we do that every Thanksgiving, and you know, simple things. Just he was thankful to have a warm place. He was thankful to have of someone that invited him. He was thankful for God. Yeah. And so, you know, I actually feel bad because I lost contact with him, so I don't know what God had in store for him afterwards. But he left our house, and matter of fact, I had a bunch of Army clothes that were left in a locker, a foot locker, and I wound up just giving him everything. And so he left the house with a full belly, warm clothes, a warm heart, and a smile on his face. So, you know, it's just, I'm thankful that I was able to do that. We were able to do that. Yeah. And so, so.
Well, and sometimes, you know, building community, it does look like, you know, okay, you're coming to our house, and this is now a new tradition, and it's going to be decades. Sometimes it looks like just one-time things, and you sometimes God has us walk along people for a long time. Sometimes God has us walk along people for a short time. And, the guarantee is that you lost contact with them, but God didn't. And the guarantee is that, God had other people who were going to be in contact with him all along the way, and that God never stopped pursuing him. And that we, sometimes we feel this burden of like one time means forever time. And that's not true either. And so I guess it's just a note when it comes to especially hosting your home. I think sometimes people get overwhelmed because they're like, well, if I do this once, then I'm doing this forever, and I can't do this forever. And it's like, then do it once and do it whenever God says do it, and let's keep going.
Yeah. So we really have covered more of the, the special times of bringing someone in, but I think of, and this isn't exactly like what we're talking about, but I think home groups is a way that, we are able to regularly invite somebody into our homes. But what are some other ways that we can regularly be building relationships, inviting people in? And when I mean homes, I really mean lives as well. And so what are some ways that we do that?
Well, inviting homes, I mean, like you had wing night. Alicia, probably she's shooting, I think, for 4 times a year. Right now it's been working out to about 2 or 3 times a year. She's had just knitting nights where she's invited a few people over who she knows has knitting projects, and they just knit, and I lead.
How's her sweater coming? Is it done?
She's done 2.
Oh, wow.
And then she's made a few now, so that's a whole thing. But just
Christmas
wait till
is coming. I'm expecting.
Yeah, she's pregnant with our 4th, so she's gonna be nesting soon. So she'll be making probably 8 more. Yeah, so I mean, you can do themed nights. You can just have people over for dinner. You could have people over for their birthday. You could, like you said, home groups. I don't know. Are there kind of, Super Bowls?
Just a football game.
Yeah.
A baseball game. It's just fun to get together.
You used to... It's leveraging our passions, I guess you could say.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be something you hate. Yeah. I'm not hosting knitting night.
Yeah. I mean, you used to always have people over for all the games, Hawks games and stuff. And I think I think it's a very, I mean, it is challenging in its own right, but starting there, like my wing night, like I am very much not like a super courageous kind of guy when it comes to inviting people over, but I leveraged something that I loved. I mean, it's easy. Just what do you like? Are you a Sounders fan? What is it? Maybe you're a movie guy. Have movie night. And I'm always appreciative of getting those invites by friends and family, but it's just building relationships has to take a vulnerable, I'm giving up my time for somebody else. But I'm curious, and this is so like out of the conversation, but talking about your cooking, how have you taken the home to others? Like, what I mean by that is, like, you had like a catering business, but now a lot of, in my mind, a lot of what home is food, is cooking. And I feel like you've been able to kind of bring that to others in different ways. I guess, just so you don't toot your own horn or anything, but you've been able to help cook for the staff and help cook with the church. I know that there's so many people, we do breakfasts now, that are helping and cooking. In my mind, that's just the same as inviting somebody into your home, because you're kind of bringing the home to them. And so there's so many different ways that we can serve. Like, you used your gift, use your skill and your joy of cooking, but what other things can we do? I just hope that we can think about this, because I think it really is important to just invite people in, to be the ones going and seeking others. I mean, I love that this month, community is talking right after we've talked about missions, last month. I'm not sure where I'm going with that, but I just hope that we're thinking about different ways of doing that. So okay, moving on. Let's be really practical about this. What are some really practical tips in hosting? Have any?
You don't have to make it totally crazy special. Just do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And, 9 times out of 10, whatever you're doing is going to be more than anybody's ever expecting anyway.
Yeah.
So don't stress. Just do what you do.
Yeah.
And, I personally, I like to pray about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, God, give me a peace of mind. God, just use this time we're going to have together
Yeah.
as you will.
Yeah.
And, it always seems to work out. I always say that it always works out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
don't be scared. It is I know it's a little scary, but
Yeah.
don't be worried about
Well,
it.
what's it like with like little kids? Like say you have a family and you got small children and you're inviting over that guy is kind of not, something's definitely going on. I mean, what's the
Like, how do you
practical?
prep your kids?
Yeah, how do you prep? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you have a similar thing with your kids, but
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we just, I guess sometimes we would talk about how are we going to make sure that we keep the kids safe or in a certain context. But for the most part, you can't plan for a lot of things. And so you just get them as they come. Someone is, swearing up and down and all this kind of stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let's deal with that when that happens. If, it's like raising kids most of the time.
Yeah,
You
right.
got to deal with stuff as it comes.
You got to react in the moment.
Yeah.
yeah,
But Alicia and I had a habit for a long time of praying before people came over. Now it feels like when people come over, I'm getting there just as they are. So we don't usually have that time beforehand. But I think that's an extremely important habit to have and to do your best to be praying about the people
Yeah.
who will be there. Because ultimately it's God who's going to,
prayer comes first.
going to be able to put stuff on their hearts and minds that you couldn't do. I remember the first time I realized, going to someone's house and being like, oh, there's light music playing. Like, I feel like that's really nice because it helps just feel.
Break the silence. Yeah.
It makes sure there's never just completely dead silence. Because as much as silence is good on an individual level, I think if you're trying to start a new relationship or make people feel comfortable, it's not good.
Yeah, definitely not good.
But so that's always been a thing for us. I always forget. And so it's nice when we have a varied different people over, just a lot of variety, and I'm thankful for those who are more comfortable with already because they help remind me of things that I should do this when there's someone I'm not as comfortable with, because sometimes I forget to like put out a few glasses because our cupboards are you can't see inside them, they're like glass. And so putting out a few cups so they don't have to ask where it is, because most people won't, or they just feel uncomfortable. Just prepping them, hey, when you first get here, there's the bathroom, here's cups and water, here's some snack, you know what I mean? And just making sure they already know, here's the things and you're welcome to them, instead of just being like, well, they know we've got to have cups. But that's one awkward barrier removing.
Yeah,
from the get-go.
I think when, because I host home groups, and one of the things that I it's funny that you said music, because really funny. You
just sing a cappella the whole time to them.
Yeah, this last home group that we had, I was dropping my dog off at my parents'. Because they're very gracious to watch her. And so I'm kind of coming in right as it's starting and some people are there, and like Molly, my wife, had like the music going, but it was at five volume. It was like very little. And I was like, I'm like looking at her. I'm like, is the music going? Like, what's happening? And
you're
so
like panicking.
Yeah, I ran out, turned it up. But it's funny because it really does like set the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I just tried, like, we have in our home group, we have families with kids. Mm-hmm. And so what Molly and I will do is, we'll take whatever, little toys. Yeah, mm-hmm. we were gracious enough to get some toys from a different family. We don't have kids. But we just kind of just like lay them out there, and they were making like pillow forts and stuff on our couch, and we were just, and I just think being like accepting the fact that the normal for you is that's gone for this night. Yeah. Just go with, whatever's happening. Like the Lord never was very like Jesus when he reached people. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like he was reaching them on his terms. He was always reaching them on their terms. He was meeting them where they're at. I think that's another like tip is like meet the people that you're hosting where they're at, and it might look different for different people, like you're saying. Like people it might look different, but I think that's really been what's helped me the most is getting outside of my own comforts. Because trust me, if it was up to me, everybody'd be washing their hands twice over before eating. But you have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean, I think some people, when they think I'm going to host, I have to make the house spotless. I have to make sure that every single pillow is in the right spot. I have to make sure that, and I think that there's a specialness to allowing people to see your imperfect life, see that, there was dirty dishes in the sink before you even got here, to see that the pillows aren't, perfectly aligned, to see that there was maybe some stuff on the ground that wasn't picked up.
To see the beauty in the mess, so to speak.
Yeah. And that obviously
like,
means
these people are just as normal as I am.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's not an episode of Hoarders that you want to present,
right.
But,
clean up the gross stuff.
Yeah. And there's some things that, like you said, you will prep in anticipation of making it welcoming for them, make sure the toilet paper stocked or stuff like that. But, as far as, you don't want, I would hate for people to go away from this and think, well, I have to perfect my house in order to have people over. You're going to kill yourself and you're going to hate hosting. And also people aren't being invited into your real life. Yeah. Like, I mean, are you that put together? Is that how you live every day?
Yeah.
And, just
it's not going to come off as a genuine.
Yeah. Just that balance of extending the hand so that people are welcome, but not so much so to where they feel like they're meeting a new person.
Right.
Like you want to be genuine.
Yeah.
With regards to kids, I think we often overcomplicate it. The way God made us, made kids inquisitive, and you know what? If they don't have a toy, they'll have fun with whatever they have. Like you said,
they'll figure it out.
Yeah. Build a fort with the pillows.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Kids are going to be kids, and they're going to enjoy themselves however they can.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it being absolutely perfect all the time.
Yeah.
So, Dad, you are now empty nesters, and what has that experience been like, and how are you? Like, I don't know. Are you planning to invite anybody over? I know we still have our family gatherings, but
raves every night of the week.
Yeah. What is your hosting? Is it you're not retiring hosting, are you?
No.
How has it changed? What, like, both quantity but also like styles? How's it different?
I think it is changing. Like this year, you folks aren't going to be here.
Yeah, we won't be there.
You'll be in Colorado. So Amanda's coming.
My sister,
my daughter, and her husband, and they have a roommate that has nowhere to go. So we've invited him over as well.
Oh wow!
And so he'll be coming this year. And you know what? Maybe there might be more. I don't know. I don't know for sure just yet, because God will put an opportunity in front of us, and it'll happen.
Yeah.
Well, and even though, like, in just that hosting example, just so people can think about, like, well, if I just had this person over, what does that matter? Like that. Those people who aren't normally in your life, they're going to see an example of marriage. They're going to see an example of fatherhood and motherhood with your daughter being there. They're seeing an example of how you interact with a complete stranger. They're going to see an example of how you interact with someone that you've known decently, but they're not family. Like, that's, the reality is that being a Christian, like, this is a holistic life change, that we're now filled with the Spirit, and it changes who we are and how we interact with others. They're going to see how you interact with others. And hopefully they get a really good picture of this is who Jesus is, and this is how Jesus interacts with people. This is how Jesus would desire to interact with me.
Yeah.
And, I think sometimes we think, it's all or nothing, or, I can't invite some family and then one person over or two people over. It's like, why not?
Yeah.
Like, we're building community, we're loving others. And whether that's 20 people or one person, that's a person.
Yeah. You're really hitting on something right now. It's like, what's the heart? Like, why are we doing this again? And it bringing up what you said before is just, it's a motivation out of love. It's a motivation out of, like, I know for us being Christians, we have the Holy Spirit in us that has given us the ability to care for others and to think of others. And community so much encapsulates God's design. We've said it before. We're going to keep saying it, but it's his design to be in community, building relationships. And that's just one really intimate way of building relationships. You know, it's easy to make friends at work. It's easy to make friends, you know, at school or whatnot. But how deep are those relationships? Do you really know them? And, you know, I think inviting somebody over, like, even, I know I'm bringing up an example that we've probably all felt, but like even when I'm you know, in elementary school, it's like the friendship of someone that you invite over to your house for the first time for like a sleepover or whatnot. That's when like that friendship becomes like, all right, we're best friends now. And it's the same as adults, you know, when we invite somebody into our lives, that's when the deep relationships begin. Yeah. And so I'm just encouraged by that.
It was awesome. We've only done it three times, I think, maybe. But before we moved back from Florida, I was actually just thinking about like, we should do this again. Because when you're adults, especially when you have kids, that's it. We had what we called family sleepovers. It happened completely spontaneously. I forget what started it. There was something where I don't remember if we needed a place to stay that night or one of our friends. I don't remember, but it was just like, oh yeah, our kids, they were super young. It's like they're just gonna sleep in one room. We'll sleep on the couch, and you know, we were at a friend's house, and then it was just like, why don't adults do this? Like, because it's so much fun.
It's really comfortable.
You could have
bed. That's
it is very comfortable in your own bed, but like it was just super fun, and it was just like you said, like as kids, that was such a natural thing to have this like special. I came to your house and I had dinner, and then you know we hung out as long as we could. Then we fell asleep, just knocked out, and then we woke up, had breakfast, and hung out a little bit longer, and that builds so much unity.
Yeah, totally. I bet you're very close with them now.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's just But it's, you know, find ways to have real community. Yeah. Maybe for those of you who are like, no, not doing that. It's like, then do a dinner date followed by a breakfast morning date where it's just like, you actually just like hang out for long standing periods of time back to back.
Well, I was just thinking, you know, we'd actually go traveling with friends, and just this past weekend we went to visit some friends, and two couples, us and another couple, rented a Airbnb. So we got to cohabitate.
There you go.
And it was like an adult sleepover. It was great.
I'm not weird.
Okay.
You're weird.
It is kind of weird.
You're not weird. You take trips with friends. You do things like that. Yeah. But you know, it occurred to me that, you know what, I bet you, I venture to say that you've all felt it. You know that God puts it on your heart when somebody, you know, you want to have, you know, you might not otherwise say, well, I'd like to invite that person to my house. Well, God puts it on your heart. If we listen, God speaks through us. God puts it on us, but we just need to be receptive to hear that. Yeah. And sometimes we're afraid. We're afraid to hear it, and we're afraid to accept it. But, you know, God really? Really? Yeah, really. So listen to it. And you know what? You know what? God has blessed us. We have never had a negative experience. I can't tell you. You know, inviting people into your life, inviting people into to break bread or having lunch or just talking. You know, it's never been a bad thing. It's always been good. Praise God, right?
Yeah. I would say that it's always possible for it to not be good, but I haven't had one either. It's always been a blessing. It's always been worth it, and you know, how could you not want that after you've experienced it?
Yep. So it seems like, to kind of wrap things up here, community is, I don't know if we've ever explicitly said this, but I am now identifying it in my mind, so I'm going to say it. Community is selfless. Community is selfless. It might seem really obvious to others, but that's when relationships start, is when you die to yourself and you're living for someone else. Like, that's community. So thank you so much for coming on, Dad. It has
you're
been
welcome.
A blast. I come on again. Travis won't be upset.
No, that'd be great.
But thanks for being able to talk about community and inviting people in. I know that you're not a unique example. I know there's many others who do this, but I also encourage you, if you're watching or listening, Thanksgiving is coming up. Yeah. Do you know anybody that is going to be alone, or maybe you want to have some joint families Thanksgiving?
Or you're going to be alone, and you can be the one that starts that change.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I encourage you guys, try to invite somebody in this holiday if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and listening. next week, what are we talking about next week? We're talking more about community.
We're talking about finding community.
Finding community. So
seeking it out.
Okay, seeking it out. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So look forward to next week when we talk more about community. And as always, God bless.